See, initially the Jeeps were made by Willys.
हाँ.
Then the license came to Mahindra.
हाँ. Yes.
So basically, the major shift we saw was left-hand drive to right-hand drives.
हाँ.
Correct. Otherwise, the engines were the same.
हाँ.
Now, Jeep culture has also changed a lot. We talk about Ford GPWs. Are you well aware about these?
Ford GPWs would be what? The low bonnet you're talking about?
Yeah.
हाँ.
So
low bonnet, correct.
these are
43, right?
I mean, yeah, around that.
Haan.
That. So basically, Ford GPWs today are commanding very high prices. They are sold at phenomenal prices. I mean, if you want me to quote, we can talk about in the ballpark of 20 odd lakhs. See, how did the vintage and classic car, how India was flooded with these cars because of the old British times and stuff, right?
Yeah.
And the cars which were remaining. Now, obviously, those cars have sold, they've changed hands. Some cars could not make it, they did not survive, they perished. Spares are reducing. So now spares obviously are coming in from outside majority.
Yeah.
So sometimes you can find some spares, sometimes you can't find some spares. Especially, I think it becomes tougher for, I mean, if we're talking about cars like Bel Airs, we're talking about cars like Dodges and stuff, you can find them dime a dozen. But for cars which are rare, they'd be very tough. Then another thing I feel which is very tough with these cars is again finding people. I mean, again, this is something which I heard people talk about, which I kind of also feel, which made a lot of sense. A lot of these cars, when we talk about, let's say, the Rolls Royces or the Bentleys, they come with a lot of woodwork.
Yeah.
So that's not the easiest. It's not easy, basically, getting that quality. And I feel they should allow these cars. They should, in fact, celebrate these cars because, I mean, so even when we take our cars out for these morning drives, sometimes a policeman is there. Sometimes they just look at these cars, wave, and they're very happy seeing these cars.
Oh yeah.
That happens. So it happens. You can encounter someone who's not wanting to create a problem for you. He'll just smile at the car. He'll in fact say, "Can I take a picture with the car?"
Yeah.
Take a picture, and they let you go. But then some people really want to get down to enforcing that particular law, and then they basically harass you.
Dude, so which was the first car you drove when you turned 18?
The first classic car? Or
Yeah, classic, of course.
Was
Who cares about Martin?
No, I drove I drove a classic before I turned 18.
Okay.
So I mean, but it was a very short. It was a short spin. I remember it was in a Morris Minor.
Acha.
It was a Morris Minor. I drove. It was a green color Morris Minor.
Okay.
It was not properly restored at that time.
Okay.
So I told my father that I want to drive this around. So took it around the colony, empty roads, drove it here and there a bit. And for me, it was just like the fact that I drove this car because those cars are not easy to handle. They don't have power steerings. Clutches are hard. And it was a thrill, that time and I was honestly I learned driving on a modern car. I learned driving when I was probably I think 16 and a half. And when after that year when I drove it, I said, this is great fun. So Morris was the first car, then came the Fiat, then started the entire silsila of driving different cars. In fact, one of the first few cars which I also drove was the Jeep. It's not a classic. It's a modern classic. It's a 1986 CJ3B.
Okay.
So that's one of my favorite cars as well, actually, if you ask me.
Okay.
Because that's a car which I feel can go anywhere. You take that car anywhere. One of the most reliable engines again. And if you want to talk about it from a very raw off-road perspective, it is as capable as any of the modern day off-roaders, I'd say.
Dude, those cars were war machines.
Correct. They're tanks. In true terms, I'd say it's a tank.
Tanks in one way, I would definitely I would call them tanks in a way that just take them anywhere. I mean, they don't give up so easily.
Correct. They don't give up. And actually what happened, initially the Jeeps were made by Willys. Then the license came to Mahindra.
Yes.
So basically the major shift we saw was left-hand drive to right-hand drives. Correct. Otherwise, the engines were the same. Now, Jeep culture has also changed a lot. We talk about Ford GPWs. Are you well aware about these?
Ford GPWs would be what? The low bonnet you're talking about?
Yeah. So
bonnet, correct.
these are
43, right?
I mean, yeah, around that. That. So
got it.
basically, Ford GPWs today are commanding very high prices. They are sold at phenomenal prices. I mean, if you want me to quote, we can talk about in the ballpark of 20 odd lakhs.
Really?
Yeah, today, I mean, see, today markets are very tough to understand as well, to be very honest.
Because I think who was telling me there are some people down in Punjab who are making body shells,
The tubs.
of the low bonnet Jeeps.
Correct. So, but again, like finding an original Ford GPW is not the easiest, but that's where I feel the practical choice today. Like we bought the CJ3B back, I think we bought this around 4.5 years back, and the reliability the engine which basically with the CJ3B comes with is called a Hurricane engine. And this is by far the most reliable engine, I'd say, in comparison to any of these Jeeps. See, the American Jeeps which later came in also, like the Fords and all, they came in a 6-cylinder configuration as well, by the way.
Yeah.
The 4-cylinder was there and the 6-cylinder also came. And the CJ2As, which are the Willys low bonnets. So the Willys also had a low bonnet. So there were a lot of, the Jeeps came in a lot of configurations. The CJ2A, the CJ3A, there was the CJ4A, CJ3B. Basically, it depended on its bonnet height, and it was also the length. Some Dalas were a little longer by a few inches and some were a little shorter. So out of the entire thing, my favorite is the CJ3B. It's a short length. So it's very capable off-road. Secondly, it's got a fantastic and reliable engine. In fact, we were planning a trip to Rajasthan in these Jeeps. I mean, that's the kind of reliability they have, that, you know, as long as you have a pana and a jack and you've got fuel in that tank, you can go. But because of the weather, obviously, we kind of decided to postpone it. But we're going to do this soon, 100%.
Okay, interesting. I don't know how far you will be able to answer this question, but still, I'm sure you would have seen it with your own eyes. So I'll still ask you, could you talk to us a little bit about the kind of challenges you've experienced when it comes to restoring these classics?
See, I think I'd be an amateur to answer this, because for me, it's been more about driving these cars. It's been more about enjoying these cars, and also, I mean, the minor tingles here and there. And restoration is something, obviously, which is, I mean, it's learnt over a lot of years. But yeah, if from a very general perspective, if it has to be answered, I feel it's today, I think, if we first let's get down to the people doing it, manpower is becoming an issue as well. Right, because you have to be very skilled. You have to have that technical knowledge about these cars, which very few people have. It's a dying art, in simple words. So getting someone, especially when it comes to do mechanical work properly on those engines with the correct knowledge, is very tough. And it's just going to become tougher with times to come. Secondly, I also feel spares. Obviously, there was a time. See, how did the vintage and classic car? How India was flooded with these cars because of the old British times and stuff, right? And the cars which were remaining. Now, obviously, those cars have sold. They've changed hands. Some cars could not make it. They did not survive. They perished. Spares are reducing. So now spares obviously are coming in from outside majority. So sometimes you can find some spares, sometimes you can't find some spares. Especially, I think it becomes tougher for, you know, I mean, if we're talking about cars like Bel Airs, we're talking about cars like Dodges and stuff, you can find them dime a dozen. But for cars which are rare, they'd be very tough. Then another thing I feel which is very tough with these cars is, again, finding people. I mean, again, this is something which I heard people talk about, which I kind of also feel, which made a lot of sense. A lot of these cars, when we talk about, let's say, the Rolls Royces or the Bentleys, they come with a lot of woodwork. So that's not the easiest. It's not easy, basically, getting that quality today. Quality again comes in, like, I mean, I'm comparing it to 15 years back. Getting these cars repaired and restored was much easier. I remember there was a time these cars were getting repaired in our drive. Like, you know, we used to, gaadi kharab hui, we called someone, there would be people doing it. Now the number of people doing it has really reduced. It's not easy getting and there will be people who will put their hands up to do it. But इसमें एक और challenge आ जाता है कि if someone who does not have that knowledge opens that engine up and then lifts his hands, then you are left high and dry. So you have to be very careful about what is like. There are few instances. I mean, I wouldn't this was around when? This was around 2 years back. That, you know, someone's, let's say, engine has been opened up or gearbox has been opened up, and then that person has been left high and dry. So firstly, it's that cost of opening that up Secondly, the person who's opened it up with half that knowledge has left.
Yeah.
So for the person to come back and undo that damage is another challenge, and then to complete that work is obviously another entire thing altogether. But yeah, I mean, there are also pluses because of the increase in knowledge
Yeah.
and availability of knowledge on the internet. It also has become in some aspects easier. If you, because so obviously social media and everything has connected you to people who you could probably not even be in touch with. So there are a lot of people who can guide you, help you, maybe in a different city, different country also altogether. So it's improved in that sense altogether.
Okay. So by any chance, if you're familiar, what is the difference between the Indian rule which we spoke about earlier about to restore and keep vintage cars as against probably in US?
I don't think there is a specific rule again over there. I think for me, I am talking from a very raw perspective. Firstly, it's not even an Indian rule, I'd say. This is currently a very Delhi rule, the NGT rule, right? And it's in another few states.
No, I'm not talking about the NGT. I'm talking about the 50-year and the whole gray area that we mentioned earlier. You mentioned earlier.
Correct.
Because US mein, I don't see people driving well-maintained classic cars and vintage cars being stopped as such. I mean, they drive, right?
No, they drive because there is no distinction over it. The distinction of this 50 came in that you should be allowed to keep those cars only after this NGT rule came in. Correct.
Oh.
Correct. Like, I mean, obviously 50, the idea of VN plates was like pressed on after we were told that these cars are now defunct or you can't drive these cars because this 15-year rule is imposed. Correct. Because if let's say there is no rule of 15 years, now irrespective of that car is 20 years old, 30 years old, 40 years old, it's a car. Correct. Whether it's a vintage car or a classic car, you can drive these cars up and down basically. But because the Delhi government or the NGT got this rule in कि अब 15 साल से you can 15-year-old cars you can't drive altogether. That's when the HMCI, Heritage Motoring Club of India and a few other clubs filed that application that at least 50-year-old plus cars should be allowed. That's how this thing came in.
Okay. But
this was 2017. This was 2017.
So, but then why is it, again, I'll ask the same question again, but why is it that India may they are stopping you, but in US and other countries?
In India, they're stopping any car above 15. Also, I feel because
I'm not talking about 15. I'm talking about actually 50 years का जो rule है vintage cars का.
Correct.
So classic cars का, like you said, you have to go in the golden hour early in the morning, daytime.
Correct.
Let's say we put this fact aside for a minute that it is difficult to drive. Let's say they are fine to drive and you can drive it every day or whatever it is from point A to point B.
Correct.
US may, I believe, they don't stop you from driving if it's well maintained, and यहाँ पे even if it's well maintained, they'll not let you drive it. They'll just stop you. Why is that happening according to you?
Because firstly the law states very clearly. Now here the distinction of 50 or 15, whatever you want to put it, is they made it very clear that any car above the age of 15 cannot drive. Which is, again, I don't feel it's from a very controversial opinion you can say or whatever, but it's not from an environmental perspective. I feel it's also the entire lobby altogether which is correct. So that is why, and that is why they're so they're hard on implementing it. Otherwise, if we talk about, forget the US, let's talk about any country. I don't think I've heard of a rule which says that your cars become old and it has valid, even though it has valid documents, it's not polluting and it's completely fit, you're not allowing it to drive. So whether you talk about any European country, you talk about the US, you talk about any place, you talk about, I think as long as the car is fit to drive, it should be allowed to drive.
Correct.
So I don't see any head or tail when it comes to the decision of the NGT, and after that, I feel they should allow these cars. They should in fact celebrate these cars because, I mean, so even when we take our cars out for these morning drives, sometimes a policeman is there. Sometimes they just look at these cars, wave, and they're very happy seeing these cars.
Oh yeah.
That happens. So it happens. You can encounter someone who's not wanting to create a problem for you. He'll just smile at the car. He'll in fact say, "Can I take a picture with the car?"
Yeah.
Take a picture, and they let you go. But then some people really want to get down to enforcing that particular law, and then they basically harass you.
ज़बरदस्ती चुल होती है वो
Correct.
some of these people.
Correct. I mean, basically, they want to make a buck out there.
That's all.
They want to basically, they want to make a buck basically, and for that you have to spend an hour first. You have to argue with them, maybe make a call here or there. So that's why the 6:30 a.m. rule is the best rule. Or you take these cars out at night. That's why SLK is like a night ice cream car. So you don't find any cop. You go out, put the hood down, press on the gas.
Nice. One question that has been playing on my mind, to be very honest, and I think you'll be able to answer it well enough. That यार इन गाड़ियों का value I wanted to understand. Is it true that, I mean, I forget about is it true or false? Does the value of all these old classic cars increase or decrease, or what is it? Is it based on something? What is the thing like?
See, if we look at it over the years, it has increased.
Okay.
And I'm talking about it from a very holistic perspective. Whether we talk
Okay.
about an entry level car or we talk about, very fancy, in simple words, we talk about a fancy car. All the cars, big ticket cars, small ticket cars, mid ticket cars, they have increased in general. Then when we talk about the appreciation of specific cars, obviously it depends. If you're picking up a car which is a very rare car, which is not available. Secondly, which maybe can't be imported also, then that car is going to increase. That car's value will obviously be increasing in comparison to a car which is probably, let's say, in raw terms, the run of the mill in the vintage and classic scene. So yeah, I mean, and another rule on imports is, as of today, which stands is, you can import a car which is older than 1950. You can't import a car which is newer than 1950.
You can import a car which is older than 1950, but not newer than 1950.
So let's say if you want to import a Jaguar XK120, you can't. Unless you get the 1949, if it was, I think it started production in 49 or 50, but if it's started in 49, then you can get that 49. You can't get a 1954 or a 1955.
So essentially, the cars newer than 1950 would appreciate more in value.
As of today,
because you can't import that.
Correct.
Right?
As of today, but again, old cars do as well, because it's not easy finding a clean. Let's say if you're finding a Phantom 3, or you're finding, let's say you're finding a Derby Bentley, or you're finding any of these cars, it's not easy finding clean cars, whether you talk about it in the US or the UK or any place. So importing is also not the easiest thing. I mean, you have to do a lot of study in it. People make trips. People go and see the car. Some people don't even make it. They have someone to see the car over there. So it's an entire process altogether. But yes, in overall, if you ask me in an overall aspect, yes, the car's values appreciate. I mean, they are timeless assets, what I'd call them.
Have you considered making this a business? I mean, buying cars, restoring them, bringing them to mint condition, bringing them back to life, and then selling them to.
See, I feel that when it comes to, I mean, we're very passionate about cars, but at the same time also, it's, I mean, if we have to tomorrow buy something new, we have to sell.
Yeah.
Correct. So it's not like I have this thing that I just want to. I mean, it's very painful selling one of our cars also. But yes, I mean. If I need to buy something, I'm very open to selling something out of the collection as well. But as a full-time business, I'm happier keeping it as a passion and a hobby altogether. I'd say. But yeah, I mean, there are a lot of people who would be doing this, are doing this, and it is sort of lucrative as well. But yes, you have to be at the right place at the right time, and you should be knowing exactly what you are buying and at what price you're buying. Because anyone, let's say if your buying price is going wrong, then you're already starting on one leg. So then the entire, let's say you're getting your restoration done on it and stuff. So you should not be in a position that you basically built a car which you're not being able to sell. So yeah, I mean, and you have to have a lot of patience and holding power, in simple words. Because it's not like these cars are getting ready in a month. If it's a completely unrestored car, it's a ground up restoration, it's going to take a while. And you need to have someone, I mean, you're selling to also should have that same eye for detail. Because what has happened is, I mean, a lot of people have come up to me also and they've told me that, we want to buy an old car. We want to buy a vintage / classic car. But when I ask them, what do you want? They don't know. They just want an old car. They want those big lights. So it's very tough to educate those people about it. And I also feel that these cars can't be owned by everyone. Because you can't, like whenever whether someone's buying a car from you or getting them restored, this is not basically a car you're buying out of a showroom which you're going to get a warranty with.
Of course. No.
So, and these cars require a lot of TLC.
Yeah.
So even if you're not there in town, these cars need to be started. These cars need to be, the more like my conclusion out of the entire experience I've had is that the more these cars are running, they're happier. The moment you let these cars rest, that's when the problems start.
Okay. So on that note, one question I had in mind, as you were talking about maintenance. So I'm sure there are times wherein from different countries you have to import either new parts, which I'm sure is not very frequent considering the age of these cars, but at the same time those parts might be slightly used or probably refurbished.
Correct.
So I'm not sure what the rules and regulations in terms of customs and everything is
So
for
you-
these kind of parts. So what is it? What are the kind of rules and regulations and customs? If you can tell me a little bit about used parts.
So for whatever parts we've usually had to import, we've usually, like when it's come to the Mustang also, that the uncles helped us out with that. And otherwise we've been able to source a lot of parts within the country only. It's not see, because the kind of there's a barrage of cars if we talk about it in terms of, you know, like American cars and all.
इंडिया में है Mustangs अभी और?
इंडिया में काफी Mustangs हैं. There are quite a few of them. I can't put a number on them.
Dude, I want a John Wick one. वो मेरे को नहीं लगता ज़्यादा है.
But if we talk about it, like I mean, even when we, you know, when we turn, like, did you attend the Statesman this year?
नहीं, unfortunately I was not there, but the boys were there.
Okay. So like now the quality of cars slash shows has increased by heaps. I remember we had participated in the 21 gun salute in 2020, just before COVID hit, and there was a Mustang section which had
Achha.
1, 2, 3. It had 7 Mustangs.
Okay.
So if 7 are present at that show, you can imagine how many are there unrestored, how many are restored and not participating, how many didn't make the cut to qualify to be there at that event. Similarly, at the Statesman this year, that's why I had asked you, there was a section of Rolls Royce and Bentleys.
Acha?
Yes, there was a section of Rolls Royce and Bentleys. You would be surprised. There was an entire row which was just filled up. And I'm going to share some pictures with you. I had attended the Oberoi Concourse this year. The Rolls Royce section had around 8 or 9 beautifully restored cars.
Okay.
And you would say I'm sitting in an RR showroom in the UK as of today, and you'd see those cars, you'd say they were top spec RRs.
I think one of those RRs belongs to a friend's father, Kanav Gupta. Samir
Yes.
Gupta.
Okay,
yes.
got it.
He's
Yes.
a friend of mine actually.
So then there were a few cars. There was, I mean, and they're so competitive. I mean, that's one thing I feel the scene has really changed. If we went 15 years back, the kind of restoration work which our restorers are doing in not only in Delhi, all over Bombay and, you know, Bombay, Calcutta, all over the country, Delhi, they're doing such fantastic work which you'd probably not see 10-15 years back, because again, knowledge has increased, competition has increased, everyone stepped up their game. Same way, there was a section of, in the Oberois only, there was a section of Cadillacs, and that was won by Mr. Titus.
Okay.
I'll share again a picture with you. The kind of, again, you'd be surprised seeing those cars over there.
This was in again?
The Oberoi Concourse.
Oberoi, okay.
Yeah, this was in Feb. And they were top spec cars, man. They were top spec cars. Seeing those cars was a joy.
This was in Jaipur, if I'm not wrong.
No, this was in the Udaivilas.
Udaipur, sorry. Udaipur.
So this was the first. It was the first edition of the Oberoi Concourse, and it was beautiful. Some very nice cars we saw over there.
Is it going to be an annual thing?
Not an annual thing. I think it should be taking place every alternate year. I mean, if again the Oberoi group is ready to make us have a very happy weekend, and but let's see if that happens. It's great because
Dude, I'm coming with you.
Because the Cartier used to take place a lot.
Achha.
The Cartier was the biggest concourse show in India, but Cartier exited India in 2019, if I'm correct. The last show Cartier had was in the Rambagh Palace. We had attended that show. Again, that show was also very nice. It had a Ferrari section, it had a Jag section. So you know, when you walk in, you're like, are these cars also here?
Like vintage classic Ferraris.
Correct. Some really nice cars we saw over there. Then we also happened to come across. I remember we had come across some very nice foreign participation. So the 21 Gun Salute has a few foreign cars also participating. Mr. Madan Mohan's doing a fantastic job with that event. So the 21.
So when you say foreign cars, I'm sorry cutting you, but the foreign cars means what? People from abroad, they fly in with those cars just to participate.
Correct. So this was in 2020. After that, they had another edition in Baroda at the Baroda Palace, which was in 2023 only, in fact, or 2022 or 2023 it took place.
Okay.
So I'm not sure if there was a lot of foreign participation there because I didn't attend that event.
Okay.
But the one which we attended, which was in Karma Lakelands, 2020, it had quite a few foreign cars participating. There were, I think, at least, if I'm not wrong, 6 to 8 of them. And there was some very nice. There was a V16 Cadillac. There were some really, really nice cars. I mean, it was a joy just walking through. There was a Beetle section, there was a Volkswagen section.
Dude, no, I think so. I never knew the scene is becoming so big.
It's very prominent, very, very prominent. The fact that they can have 10 Beetles parked, then 3 Volkswagen Zetas parked, then they can have a camper parked over there, and you're just like, this is one section of the show. They'll have three to four Jag standing. There'll be like one XK120, one E-Type standing. There'll be one XK140. So, and you're just shook. You're like, wow. Then there's an American section, American muscle section. Then there's a roll section, and it's very interesting because you'll find most of the owners. You know, it's happening in Feb. The weather's nice. They'll all be standing around their cars, and it's good because the culture really gets promoted here because everyone has a story to tell behind their car. And when you're walking, you meet 30 people, 40 people, 50 people, and you learn about their cars, you're talking to them. It's actually very fulfilling for a car guy, especially for a classic car guy, because you don't get to meet a lot of classic car guys every day, right? It's very tough for, I don't even think it's wrong, because it's very tough for a classic car guy to explain their love for classic cars to a normal car guy. Because, you know, it's not driven by speed. It's the last thing which it is driven by speed. It's something very different altogether. But coming back to the quality of restoration and shows happening in the country, it's phenomenal. I'd say it's amazing. In fact, we were having, which it just got postponed. I'll keep you posted about that as well. There was a drive happening from Delhi to Agra on the 16th of August to the 18th. And that got postponed, but luckily we're finalizing the last weekend probably, or the second last weekend in September. Just because of the weather, it got postponed. So there's a participation about 15 cars. So yeah, there are people very happy driving their cars, maintaining their cars, and
count me in.
100%. I'll keep you posted about this.
And if you can, just let me know if I mean, do I have to buy a vintage car for that?
you can hop on. You can hop on.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, it's that's what I mean. The kind of culture today, it's amazing. The only thing I feel is if laws become more supportive, especially in Delhi. Like in Bombay, the culture's I'd say heaps and bounds ahead today, because Bombay has Bombay has a modern classic club. Bombay has if I'm correct, it has a Fiat club.
Acha.
Correct. It has a Fiat club. I'll share the handle with you also, where there are these 25 old Fiat Millicentos and 1100s driving. So that happens because laws are permitting. Now we can't do that, because if we are out on a Sunday with these vintage cars, we'll have 10 cops hounding us. So the moment the laws become more easy and allow us to drive these cars, the culture is anyway booming. It will take 2 steps further up. That's my personal take on this.
So tell me one thing. In that case, NGT तो सिर्फ Delhi में है.
Correct.
अगर दिल्ली के बाहर हो, let's say you're in I don't know, Greater Noida or something, then you can comfortably drive these cars around.
See, again, technically the rule is for NCT, correct? National Capital Territory, not even NCR.
Okay.
So basically, and Greater Noida anyway falls under that ambit.
Correct.
So technically, Gurgaon में आप नहीं चला सकते, Greater Noida में you can't drive in Noida. But because implementation is very scarce over there, people drive. So I have my friends who live in Gurgaon. They take their vintage, they take their classic cars out, they take their modern classics out. Then again the same in Noida.
वहाँ उतना परेशान
नहीं करते. But apparently they've started troubling now. That's what I've been told. Because once they sniff that yes, we can stop this car and make some money, they will 100% do that.
But in Rajasthan and all, they don't do it.
As of now, they don't touch wood. But yeah, I mean, recently we were, I think you must have seen the notification, Himachal Pradesh has implemented the 15-year rule. So slowly, all these states are catching on. But can't really help it.
God, dude. Anyhow, and one last thing. So one last thing I'd like you to, not ask you, but you to comment on with all your heart. What would you like to say all the young guys and girls getting into the whole world of cars as enthusiasts, or they call themselves enthusiasts, but actually I don't know if they are, but what would you like to tell them?
As a whole?
So, yeah, in general.
I personally feel that learn about your car, respect your car first, learn about your car, love your car, and then, I mean, before really driving it, learn about the entire car, and also please don't fall for trends. Be more individualistic about it.
Huh.
And yeah, I mean, how would I put it? Like, I mean, yeah, more or less.
So I'll help you out a little bit here, as in what I meant when I was asking is that क्या हो रहा है ना आजकल बहुत सारे लोग कार enthusiasm अपने आप को बोलते तो हैं enthusiasts, but actually गाड़ी का जो from all my heart I would like to say, what actually is a car's sort of sexiness, that fact X factor about a car? Is it really how fast it goes? Is it really how nice it is and how smooth it is, or what exactly is it? I personally feel, maybe then you can answer it, I personally feel people who call themselves enthusiasts, they are just viewing cars. I mean, yeah, simple. Just putting it very simply, anybody with even a Hyundai Creta or any other car, let's say a Suzuki Swift,
Correct.
वो रिम और टायर लगा लेता है, उसको लगता है वो कार enthusiast है.
Correct.
तो बहुत लोग उनको देख देख के उसी डायरेक्शन में मूव करते हैं. So what I mean is, people are, in my opinion, starting to move in the wrong direction of car enthusiasm.
Correct.
So how would you like to bring them to the right direction?
Correct. So in that way, if you're asking me for me, a very personal, at a personal level, I feel is cars are just not limited to speed. Firstly, a car is just not about how fast it is. You should learn about your car. You should appreciate a car for more than how fast that pedal can go. You should see a lot of things in a car. You should see how reliable is your car, how safe is your car, what is does your car have a good suspension or no, and then do things. Let's say if you're wanting to get into the mod culture, you want to do something very personal with your car, see what is actually good for that car, what is good for for the engine health of the car. Are you hampering it? Are you keeping it sane? And let's say if you're doing any graphic mods, do something which you actually like. Just don't be in that herd where you see 100 people doing the same thing altogether. Be a little more individualistic. If you personally like a stock car, keep it stock. So people feel that, if you're not modifying your car, you're not a car guy. I think that's wrong. You can really like a car stock. Because if a car is made the way you really like it, like I personally have a 328i. I see that car, I'm very happy the way it is. I feel it's giving me enough power. It's giving me more than enough of the kick I need for these roads. And I feel it looks very nice. It stands, the way it stands, I think I don't need to change anything about it. So people, what happens is, even let's say a guy who's maintaining his car, keeping his car clean, taking care of it daily, driving it, and actually loves his car, gets dissuaded when he's told by two people, why haven't you got this put in your car, why haven't you got that put in your car, and then that guy will become a part of that chain altogether. So I think your car's relation with you is very personal. It's one-to-one. Do what you actually like, and always take good care of your car, and respect your car before anything else.
Just to end the conversation, I mean, I'd like to say my 2 cents. I personally feel, in my opinion, who I call car enthusiasts, or should I say who I don't call car enthusiasts, who just cannot sort of, in layman terms, understand the vibrations of the motor.
Correct.
People, I feel so sad when people just don't understand, you know what I mean? They just don't understand this wonderful word called RPMs.
Correct.
And I think that time is just coming closer and closer, where I don't know, it might not completely disappear.
Correct.
But even if it is there, it's just becoming too silent.
Very minute, yeah.
Too silent these days.
Correct.
And I think hats off to people, whoever is doing aftermarket exhausts, to still keep that alive.
Correct.
And yeah, man, I think once again, thanks a lot for today, pulling time out.
No, thank you for
coming all over to my place for this shoot. But this will not be the last shoot, but definitely we are having the next shoot once you're back at your workshop in Chhatarpur, because 100%. It is going to be a treat for not just my eyes, but so many other budding young guys and girls, and even people in, probably north of 30 years of age, to see what you're doing out of passion and purely out of passion.
Correct.
Thank you so much.
It's
once
not going to
again.
be the best weather, but
It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. It doesn't really matter. I mean, we'll be just walking around and just having a look at cars and having a little chit chat.
more than happy to have you guys. 100%.
Thank you so much. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks.